Tabletopped will start after the following messages.
Are you looking for something comfortable to wear and keep your brain warm while playing tabletop games? Daily Dose of Yarn makes handmade, customized beanies for all of your style and comfort needs. She can even help you with a custom beanie to represent your favorite character. Check out Daily Dose of Yarn on Instagram and Etsy to order your new favorite beanie today.
Oh, hey there, how you doing?
Yar, do you be searching for a D&D play podcast?
Join us as we sail across the high seas.
It be a harrowing horror campaign inspired by piracy and Lovecraftian tales.
To Whom the Sea Belongs is the first campaign of the Kaleidosphere podcast.
Yes, that's kale, like the vegetable. IDO, sphere, wherever podcasts are found, yes.
My name is Cole.
My name's Kevin.
Very pleased to have been invited to do this.
Super fun. Sorry, I thought we were going to do that part too. Oh. Sorry, I thought it was like an answering machine thing. Okay. Yeah.
It's like an answering machine, but it's an ad on Tabletop Podcast.
Oh, okay.
One of the finest role-playing game podcasts of all time. As a trivia podcast who does a live trivia from Northern Ontario every single week, we sometimes ask questions about TTRPGs, such as Monster of the Week, Pathfinder, and D&D.
You do those, much to the absolute hatred of the crowd. For the most part, you do get beat up in the parking lot quite often.
If you're not the type of person who wants to beat me up in the parking lot, maybe check out Super Fun on Trivia and enjoy the rest of Tabletop Podcast.
It is upon us, everyone. The spooky season is here, and Tabletopped is celebrating all month. We are going to be releasing 2 episodes a week all through October. Each Thursday, we are going to drop a new Under the Bed, a deep dive into a new or special monster that we think is super cool. I hope you really enjoy it. And like, follow, and subscribe so that you do not miss a single one of these special episodes. All right, here's the first show of the season, one about character death.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop. Today we are talking about one of the hardest things to deal with in TTRPGs, character deaths. So for this morose and sad episode, who do we got joining me?
It's the player killer, Daniel, at Coronor.
Yeah, this is Franco. This is a confrontation event.
This is an intervention.
This is an intervention. This is Franco, one of Daniel's victims, and then joining me is another one of his victims.
Yeah, I'm Sean, and you murdered me, man.
Guys, I also wanted to say I'm your host, Nick, and I've never really told anyone this, but I am also one of Daniel's victims.
Oh, I didn't know that,
yeah, in one of our at work campaigns, he fucking murdered me.
3 for 3, let's go.
Let's go. All right, yeah, so let's talk about it. Like, character death is something that is in all of these games. I mean, there's a history of wargaming with D&D and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Franco, you've been talking to us a lot about maybe starting out a West Marches campaign at some point that's all about character death. There's also things like the Tomb of Annihilation and some other kind of modules in the past that have been specifically geared at killing characters. So let's talk about it. First from like just how do we feel about it as storytellers, and then let's go into like how to do it well, because I think that's like the hardest thing to do as a DM. So Daniel, what do you think about character death in games?
So, real talk, in my own personal experience, as I'm running a game, D&D or what have you, I feel that having character death be a part of it keeps the players invested, and by like maintaining some sort of stakes. Like, you can do whatever you want, but realize that there's like, you're not going to be able to get away with everything. There's consequences for your actions. Character death is part of that. But to balance that with things should be avoidable or escapable before you have death as the consequence.
Yeah, I think I mean if you have a DM that's just out there to kill your characters, you should get a new DM.
No one likes that guy.
Yeah,
no one likes that guy.
Yeah, your DM is supposed to be setting up an environment that is dangerous and real, and is supposed to also be like kind of rooting for you, which I think Daniel does. Like I'm not here to attack him.
Yeah, the whole throwing
was a
shade at
joke.
Daniel earlier was just because he did Murderous, but it was part of the story. It wasn't like he set out to do that.
Yeah, the
Correct.
game should be, you should challenge your players while they're playing. You shouldn't punish them for playing.
Yeah, and for me personally, I feel like character death. There's a type of DM. There are two types of DMs in my mind. One that is super narrative focused and are trying to tell us a very specific story, and that's when like fudge dice rolls and stuff come in. But if you are a table that abide by dice, then this is like character death is just a thing that's going to happen because probability says you're not going to roll 20s forever.
Those ones are going to come up. And yeah, like my motto is abide by dice. Whatever the dice say happens, that's what's going to happen. Abria Iyengar, or just Quitty, I'm going to use her Twitter handle. She does the same thing. Like the dice won't let me tell this story. She's where I got like the motivation for the abide by dice. It's your story, it's your character, but we're doing what the dice say we're doing, and that's just the way the game goes sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like when I first started DMing, I sometimes would fudge, and I'd be like behind the screen and stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, this is fine. The last session I ran, I was like, I'm gonna pull the screen away, and I'm just like rolling in front of them and stuff, and they're just like,
I'm never more scared for my players or myself than when I have to roll. I take away my ability to fudge away.
Yeah.
That's why I don't roll on the virtual tabletop. Like I'm gonna roll off to the side because if I do a critical hit, I want to be able to be like, nope, sorry, they missed, or something. Because again, I do try to save my players as much as possible. But if you're playing just all out, then it's exactly whatever the dice say happens.
yeah, I'm like leaning more like hardcore in my later years at this point. And I've just been like, I think there's a thing in 5e where it takes so long to build a character.
Yeah.
And you get so in your head about it. And like, for example, the character that died in Daniel's campaign, I was like, oh, she's a tiefling warlock, and she's like a fashion model. And my other friend Aaron was playing an orc, and he was like my like atelier, like couture, like he was like making my outfits and shit. And then it's like, oh, a ghost touches you for your exact HP and you're dead.
Oh,
and I'm just like, wow, that sucks because I built up this character for all this. And it's like, yeah, I think it's just like a lot of, like, I've been looking into the old school revival, and it's just like, yeah, character creation should be really fast and dirty and quick. And you're just like, because they could go in there and die, and you might need to roll up a new character right away.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of just a different vibe, and I think that's why 5e, like initially I was like, yeah, I really don't want to just let my characters die. Maybe I'll fudge, maybe I'll do this kind of thing, and now I'm like, no, fuck it, I'm playing 5e, and you guys are all on the chopping block. There's no screen. Mask off.
Yeah, I think, but that's the thing about character creation, though, is like when, 'cause, I mean, we've all done it, or at least I definitely did it when my character died. It was like, well, I'm gonna basically make the same character with a different
name.
Yeah, I think every table has had, Edward the Warrior and Edward's son, Edward the Warrior too.
Yeah.
What was even funnier about your character is that the original character that you made was an anagram of.
Oh yeah.
Of an earlier
that's
character
right.
you made.
So so we had just finished a campaign of Daniel's. And I had a character named like Conman Shadowfell, and then the character I brought in was Lance of Din's Hollow, which is just an anagram. And he was like, oh, he's a rogue, and he did the same thing, and then he got killed at level 2.
Yeah, well, this is the thing that I want to talk about specifically about D&D is that I feel like it's so hard in levels 1 to 5 to hit that sweet spot of this is really challenging but not 100% lethal, and then from like, I don't know, levels 13 to 20, it's really hard to hit that like vibe of this is lethal but also fun, because At the earlier levels, you just have almost no HP. You don't have a ton of mitigation. Things are just going to roll through you, and you're going to be obliterated if you're not careful. But then later, you have so much mitigation, so much stuff, that you're basically throwing like 7 dragons at someone and being like, okay, I hope that this like damages the party enough to be scary.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, part of the session 0, if you're doing character creation, when you're going to have, a character death campaign, you should be like, all right, this is going to be like your first level character. Don't do a 3-4 page backstory. Develop your character as you play. That way, if you do make it and they die quickly, you haven't invested that much time. And the ones that you have invested time in, that makes the deaths hit harder. Because now it's not just this character you spent 3 hours writing a story for. It's a character you've spent a year actually playing to get to this part. And all of the details have actually happened and occurred. And you've played through them. And there's memories there now. That's when the death feels best.
That's when it's perfectly cooked.
Right. I'm sure the death... I'm sure, like, my character, like, me and Sean's characters dying in Death House weren't super satisfying to you. I don't know. They weren't satisfying to me.
No, it felt... I got stuck in that tree, and I just couldn't get out, and then I got crushed.
Shambling Mound.
The Shambling Mound crushed me slowly over 3 rounds, 4
And then
rounds.
you oozed out?
And then I oozed out.
God, what a great detail I added.
Yeah, it was hurtful.
Honestly, that was pretty tight. Like for real, like... Because Alcindra, Devil's Grace, rest in power, queen, she was like literally touched by a ghost. And I was like, this is bullshit. This game sucks. I'm done. Daniel kindly let me come back as a ghost so that we could finish out Death House.
I was actually surprised. I didn't realize that the ghost was going to be that dangerous. Because it's just a little ghost. It's haunting this bedroom. It'll be fine. But then it's like, no, if it does enough damage to kill, they get their max and hit points reduced by that damage. I was like, but
insta-death.
For a first level character, you're not coming back from that.
Yeah, that was whack. Death House is stupid. Canceled. Death House is fucking canceled. Well, I thought like that's what I mean is like I feel like Sean, it's like Lance's death was like cool and preventable.
Preventable.
No, that was the rogue rushed in and got into melee with a monster. That was avoidable, and it was kind of escapable. The rolls just weren't there.
The rolls weren't there yet.
No, it was a fair death. I was sad about it, but we moved on mostly.
This is the thing that
you made a slightly different replacement.
I made a slightly different replacement character.
Yeah, because he was a Barovia native. I think that was more fun.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to bring somebody else through the mist.
Right, but I did. I just brought Elsindra's sister, which was... I was just like, oh, I'm going to do Hexblade Warlock instead of the Fairy Warlock because the Hexblade Warlock is broken. So.
Yeah. Unkillable. Well, this is the thing that I want to talk about because both of you just made my point exactly, where one person was like, yeah, I guess it was like I could have got out. It felt... In the end, it felt like, okay. And like, Franco, you were like, oh, that was tight. That was like a crazy moment story-wise. And then there was another death where it felt just like, this is bullshit. and both of those can exist at a table like within such a small like span of time. So how do we, as storytellers, as GMs, try to crank the game to do the first one and less of the second one, where you're trying to give the players a thing where... oh, that sucks. That's so sad. That's horrible. It makes sense. Story-wise, that was crazy. Like, that is the sentiment rather than, this fucking sucks. I hate this game.
I'll take some flack for Alcindra's death. Because this was my first time that I was running a module. So I didn't have full, like... control over what was happening.
Over my great power.
Because usually when I homebrew something, I write it up. You're more knowledgeable about what the monsters can do when you've spent a lot of time building them. But you have a module like, oh, it's a ghost. Mark ghost this room. I'll run it when we get to it. So when Alessandra got hit, I wasn't aware of the ghost's ability to just one shot and then no one could heal Alessandra because the max hit points had been reduced to 0. That's
right. It wasn't like a death
it wasn't
save
like
or anything,
you went down to 0 and were making death saves. It was just like your max hit points had been reduced by the number of points she dealt damage to you. Ugh. So that was as a DM, I wasn't really aware of the power that the ghost was wielding, and so that death was accidental.
Well, there's a thing, because a lot of monsters in the player handbook, there's like a subsection of them that have abilities that are like, hey, if this reduces someone to 0, they rip the heart out of the character and eat it or whatever. And it's like, whoa, like there's no coming back from that. And I guess it does raise the stakes a whole bunch. But at the same time, like, it's so hard story-wise to make that death feel good. Like, I just don't know how you do it.
You have to put something on the other side of that encounter that's worth the risk. Like, putting a monster that can... Because I think what Intelligence Devours will do damage to the stat and not the hit point block.
Oh, yeah.
Which means when you get your intelligence down to 0, you're dead. If you're going to put that kind of monster in the game, making them interact with that monster has to be something that they're worth the risk of doing. Saving someone, finding the key to the kingdom, or, some powerful magical thing, and they should be able to avoid that encounter. And don't surprise your players with something that could kill them. Give them clues that creature is haunting the area, or that the big bad evil person has the sword of death. Basically let them know what the stakes are before they get into it, and that will really help build up your story. Because if your players, I don't know, find a secret passage behind a grandfather clock and then get stabbed and immediately die, that doesn't really feel great.
Yeah.
Because they didn't see it coming, they weren't expecting it, and it wasn't really avoidable because the stakes weren't.
Whoa. Daniel, was that a little jab at when I killed your character?
Yeah, I think it was.
Well, yeah. Like if you have like a document that says like, watch out before you go through the grandfather clock, old Stabby's there, ready to get you. I was gonna say, Danny. Actually, I was just putting together a level 5 dungeon, and ghosts are CR4.
Oh yeah.
So Death House is levels 1 through 3.
And again, this is a pre-published module.
That's why it's called Death House.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Death House.
It claims lives.
The whole party's not gonna make it through. Don't expect it. But yeah, CRs are bullshit. Watch out for those. They're not really gonna be that helpful.
I mean, I think it was pretty helpful because a CR4 monster touches a level 1 character. I think that'll do it.
Again, I didn't put it there.
One thing that I think is really important when a character dies too is to make the death feel narratively important somehow. Like in Lord of the Rings, when Boromir gets shot 1,000 times.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. When he gets shot 1,000 times and then dies. But like that moment is what people remember from that first book / movie / whatever media you consume.
Oh, I remember Tom Bombadil. I don't know what you're talking about.
But like that moment becomes so important and informs the rest of the books. Like Merry and Pippin think about him a lot, and they're like, oh shit, like we have to like live up to our potential because we were saved in this way. How do you take that sort of storytelling vibe and put it into something where it could be like a goblin rolls, nat 20, 18 damage, and then you're like, fuck, that's half my hit points or whatever, I guess I'm dead. Like, how do you turn that moment into the Boromir moment?
Well, I think you can do that narratively. As the DM or the GM, you've got the power to be like, okay, well, this you see this goblin aiming up to take a shot at your friend, and so you jump in the way with your shield up, hoping to deflect the arrow, and instead it sinks into your chest. You can make that death worth something. It doesn't just have to be about hit points and failed AC, whatever. It can be a story-driven death.
Yeah.
And just like kind of balance off that, because you're always going to have the option to like describe what your players are doing as a DM. But if they take the damage, they're reduced to 0 hit points, and you can narratively make it work. Be like, yes, you're going to die, but in your last moments, I'm going to let you do something now that will turn the tide or help. Like, we can't save you, but I'm going to give you this moment to save your friends. As sort of like, you're dying. I'm gonna let you do something to make that work for the story.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think we've talked a little bit about homebrewed death rules before, and you've talked about like that last stand mechanic. I think that's a cool mechanic. I also think that by turning over narrative power to your characters who the outcome is decided, this is going to happen, but be like, okay, like you said, you dive, it sinks into your chest, your lifeblood begins to pool around you. What is your character thinking, seeing, doing, whatever, in this last moment, so that they can just narrate the hell out of this death, and then, like, you know, darkness closes and we move on. I think that is like really important because, like you were saying, I think that the thing that people react so strongly to is like the mental dissonance of I'm a hero and I just got touched by a ghost and I'm fucking dead. Like, what this bullshit? Like you have to give that other part of it so that narratively it can feel like that was huge. That was a big moment, and now I have to roll the character.
That's why you don't start as a hero. You start as a normal-ass farmer or a baker, and you're just like, I'm going to go into this dungeon. Hope it's okay.
Yeah, remember, level 1 is not like a brave, realm-renowned hero. It's
Valen.
I just found this magic sword. But also, like, you could also, from myths and stories of a character has just died in the game, you can give that player maybe like some clues as to what the campaign's heading for, and then you like let them narrate appearing in a prophetic dream from the other players, and sort of like let their pass on more information. Sort of like, yeah, I'm the DM, and maybe I killed your character, but now here's your chance to do something great before you pass on. Use like sort of your ghost powers to affect the story in some way.
I think it's also like there are a lot of things that you could do narratively to kind of honor the player's choice to include that character in the story by being like, okay, so you die, all your items clatter to the ground, the party collects them. Maybe the next time the party is in a situation where there's a ghost or whatever, maybe then we hear the character being like, yo, fuck it, there's a ghost in here. And you're like, what? Why is this dagger talking to me? And you can like include them in some other way in that sense as well, as more of a storytelling part of the campaign rather than a mechanical part of the campaign or something like that.
Just remember, like in most games, video games, RPGs, tabletops, death isn't necessarily the end. Death could just be the start of a new quest to, you know, find to find the resurrection, and that player can come back.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
not.
It's true.
Doesn't have to be permadeath. It could just be very inconvenient death.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a cleric in the village. Like, none of your party is high enough level to resurrect them, but maybe there's a cleric in the village who can help. You know, because one of the hardest things I think is once your character dies, or once a character dies in your story, is getting the new character. Like, why does he know about this party? Why does he care about these other adventurers? Who gives a shit? Like, what makes him like want to join up? It's linking the two things together. So yeah, maybe just I don't know. Maybe give him a hand, bringing him back.
It's like, have you all seen Beerfest? It does not hold up. It's not. But
no, I haven't fucking seen Beerfest.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know also exactly what you're talking about. It's very funny.
It's a movie by the guys who did Super Troopers, and it's about these like beer drinking competition guys. And one guy is murdered because he's like pushed or falls into this vat of beer, and the gravity of the fermenting beer is letting him so he can't swim up. And so you see this moment of him just trying to drink all of the beer down and then floating dead in the vat, like a hard cut. But then like a scene later, the same actor comes in with a cowboy hat and goes, hey all, like I'm Tank's brother, but why? I don't need a name. Why? I would really appreciate it if you all just treated me like him and called me Tank as well, so that because I heard so much about you. I know you guys all so well. I just want to jump in, be part of the group, and so then it's just like that character doesn't happen. So you can always pull one of those, I guess. That's fun.
Yeah, the quick my twin brother shows up is a great trope. Could be used if you like the death didn't really work for anyone. you can undo it. Again, you have full narrative control as a storyteller.
Yeah, and just like in Beerfest, one of the things that he says.
Can't wait.
Yeah, one of the
go on.
One of the things he says is he goes, "Oh, by the way, I'm an even better beer drinker than my brother was," and so it's like, "Oh, hey, we didn't lose anything. We actually got something way better in the end."
Wait, so does he fall back into? Does he do the same thing but he's
No.
able to drink all the beer?
No,
and
and they go to the competition, and it's like because they've been training like the whole movie to be in this competition, and so he just
our Beerfest podcast.
Yeah, welcome to the Beercast. Yeah, so I don't
This
know.
movie that definitely doesn't hold up.
Yeah, we really just I took us on a left turn away from this topic.
The last Beerfest on the left turn.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, character death in and of itself is it's hard for the player. It can be hard for the DM, but it's it's part of the story.
Yeah.
It's a threat that could happen if the dice are bad or if you make a dumb decision.
Let's move to a kind of different side of this topic, which is, what if a character is like, or a player, I should say, my character has hit its arc. Like, I think what would make best sense narratively is to have this character die. Like, how would you as GMs handle that?
I mean, if it does fit within the story arc, and maybe the player wants to do a new character. It's like, man, I've played this barbarian and I've raged so many times. I am raged out.
I've been talking to my therapist, and I really need to change my emotional attitudes.
So I'd love to play a paladin or something. It's like, yeah, well, you can work with that player and develop the story in a way that they make a noble sacrifice, or they just rocks fall and they die. It depends, really. Like, just work with the player.
Yeah,
and again, talk to your players before you do any of this like one-sided make these decisions. But revenging a murder could be a very interesting subplot.
Yeah.
For a while, if a character just wants to get past if a player wants to get past a character, they don't intend to ever go back to it, and they're fine with that. Have the party find them murdered in the street, and now you have an adventure hook, and maybe some player has information on the murderer, and that's your new party member.
I mean, that's too sad. What if they just move to a different town and like start a coffee shop or whatever?
Coffee shop AU.
Like Legends and Lattes.
Yeah, you can talk to your players and make a good decision. You can just there are many options.
There was a well, I'm still in the game. There's a group that I have outside of you guys. I'm sorry.
How dare you?
It's a Ravenloft campaign. It's been going on for a while. But one of our players had to leave. Mm-hmm. He was just getting too busy. He couldn't play the game anymore. He did not tell anybody else except for the DM. So the DM's like, okay, so we're just gonna kill your character. Like, yeah, no, that'd be great. And so we, as everybody else on the table, kept trying to bring him back. We were like healing him and casting resurrection, and he was like, "Oh no, I've fallen out a window now."
It's like a Mr. Bean sort of death.
It was very, very, very funny towards the end. Like, oh, I think this is supposed to happen. Let's just maybe let this go. But it was a very fun and appropriate death for the character.
Yeah, I think for me, like if somebody's like, "Hey, this is the end," I think that makes most sense for my character to die at this point. To just be like, okay, this was like maybe the adventure that I was thinking of doing next. Why don't we just do this other sort of thing that we can develop, like you said, to really hit it home so that it's an awesome story moment. Everyone can take something out of it. And then like, the brother walks in, it's not a barbarian anymore, it's a paladin.
Yeah.
Franco, I also want to talk to you specifically about West March campaigns.
Okay, we'll see.
We're probably going to do a full episode on them at some point, but can you tell me a little bit about the philosophy around like character death in that sort of setting?
Yeah, so I don't know. I've just been reading a lot about the old school revival, and I haven't like started any games in it yet. But I guess basically it's like character creation should be quick and dirty, and being introduced into the game like in the middle of a session if you get killed, it should be like the progress of the game should be prioritized over verisimilitude. Like it's kind of like, yeah, this other guy was also exploring this same dungeon and like all of his party just died. Yeah. Like that's a totally legit, because like if like in the OSR or in like a West March campaign, like you're mostly going around 2 different dungeons exploring them, and then getting as much loot out as you can. Which is kind of like, it's kind of like, yeah, sure, like that's it can be kind of like straightforward or kind of boring or whatever, but a lot of the challenges in those dungeons are usually very deadly, and you want to be strategic. You want to come in with like as much overwhelming tactical force as possible, because the world is super dangerous.
Right.
The believability of somebody also just being part of an adventuring party that was also in this dungeon, and you're just like, hey, I just lost. Yeah. Our guy just died, and you just look like him, but with a hat on and a mustache. And it's just like, yeah, that's me. And my entire party died, and they all kind of look like you. You want to hang out together? Sure. And like another cool thing about the West Marches campaign that I really want to, like, one of the reasons I really want to play it is because like part of it is also you have like a stable of characters. And so if one of your characters dies, it's like, well, I have like 5 other ones back at the village that are like ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that it's interesting because like some older modules, like I don't think it's Tomb of Annihilation. It was called like the Tomb of Horrors. Was very much like that too, where it was just like literally it was like rocks fall and you die because you like touched a doorknob. And
you need a 10-foot pole to touch that doorknob.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's where I think the cat in a cage came in. Have you heard about this?
No.
So it's something that
Why would you do that to a cat?
Well, because in early editions of D&D, you would put a cat or other creature in a cage and you'd slide it into the center of a room so that either traps that required like organic matter would go off, like monsters would come out to like eat it or whatever, and you would be able to test the room. And so they would do that all the time.
That's barbaric.
That's terrible.
That's horrible. Why would anybody do that?
Why would anyone plunder a dungeon? Obviously, you have some questionable morals.
Hire a rogue. Don't get a cat, hire a rogue. If you need a cat, get a tabaxi rogue.
Hire a rogue, put him in a cage, and slide him into a room.
I'm jogging for drugs.
I would definitely do rogue in a cage before I did cat in a cage.
It's like one of those shark cages where you just like push it in.
If anyone's interested, there's this old webcomic, or I think maybe an actual... What do you
based
call
on
it?
Beerfest?
Paper? No, it's called Nodwick, and it's kind of like one of those old school D&D settings in which the hero of adventurers have a henchman who they throw into the dungeons first to check for traps and do all of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, henchmen are really part of the rules in a lot of OSR games are like, this is how you hire people to
to die for you.
Come into the dungeon with you. Or like one of the replacement characters that you can become is one of your hirelings. Like,
right.
You're just like, I just switch in as a hireling.
That's a great way to,
Your fighter dies, drops his sword. Oh, my hire picks it up. He's the fighter now.
Yeah.
He's learned
Squire.
enough.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. The sword is so much bigger than me.
It's just like a 12-year-old kid with like a huge claymore.
Okay. Fuck, that's awesome. That would be really fun.
That would be fun. He's like 2 levels lower, but he'll get that XP much more quickly.
Cool. Yeah, I think that the only other thing I wanted to talk about was death in other non-D&D games. We've talked in this month about 10 Candles and sort of how everyone dies in that. But
spoiler alert.
Spoilers. But like, have you guys ever played other types of games? Like there's a board game I have that's not a TTRPG but kind of feels like it, called Nemesis, and I've played 3 games of it, and only one time did anyone survive, and on the time that somebody won, only one person out of the group of 4 lived through the game, and it felt really good because it was just narratively like the vibe. So like it feels like, depending on the game you're playing, that these can feel better than others. But have you guys had experience with character deaths in other types of games that you think are either good, bad, ugly, whatever?
Well, I'll say, as far as board games are concerned, Pandemic, in which you may not save the world, definitely has its own sort of vibe. And then, games like Destiny, which are storytelling MMOs, in which they kind of write in the character's constant resurrection as part of the story. That also makes a lot of sense and is something you could do to avoid player death. Just be like, yeah, resurrections happen. Here's the price you pay. But again, you could just write off death too. You don't need to keep it. But other than like that, a lot of the other games that I've played have just been like, death is death. Maybe you can resurrect, maybe you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a zombie horror survival game. I think Dead of Winter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where you die. You can die pretty frequently, but you just like, all right, well, here's I'll get one of these NPCs, and now they're my character. So you get to keep playing, but that's also just a survival game, so you don't always win.
What about you, Franco? Anything that like strikes your fancy?
Well, no, I mean, I was thinking about like Monster of the Week and how close to death we came a couple of times. I think the lethality in that game is pretty clear, and the being very prepared is also very clear. Like it's clear like you have to prepare for combat. You know, you have to like figure out what their weaknesses are and like what the weakness of the monster is and stuff like that. So I think it's like, I think that sort of aspect of it where a lot of games, I feel like in D&D 5e, like a lot of times it's like, well, what you're relying on is like your stats and your abilities and your features and stuff. And then in a lot of other games, like what you rely on is player ingenuity. Where you're just like, I'm going to put up a barricade, or I'm going to, climb on top of this monster. Which is creative, but smart. I don't know, Nick. Maybe not.
Yeah, and then I will also say the last type of character death that I've experienced in a game is where a character death turns you to another side of the conflict. Have you guys ever experienced something like that? Where like there was a game I was playing where when you were essentially taken by the enemy, you became a threat that you were able to still participate in the game, but you were now trying to kill all your friends.
I'm 100% sure we played that on the playground. It was like tag, but it was
yeah, that's a lot of the Betrayer games too.
Yeah.
Will have
the Outpost, or
The Thing. Yeah, The Thing. Oh, so good.
There's a game based on The Thing?
Oh, it's called The Outpost. It's so good. It's resource management and like betrayal secrets. So one of you is the Thing, and you can like make other people the Thing as well.
And you can also you're just constantly trying to point the group's fingers towards other people, because if you are the Thing and you escape on the helicopter, you win. Like that's one of the ways you can win.
It's a really really great game. It just got, I'm not pitching for it, but it just
it just got released.
It just got re-released. They ran out of copies.
And you've got 5 or 6 hours, a game where like one of the players is trying to kill the other players. The Battlestar Galactica board game, in which 2 players are Cylons. Spoilers. Is a really interesting game where like player death is sort of part of the process, and maybe you'll make it to the end and maybe you won't.
That show didn't make any sense. Like I feel like they really biffed that landing.
Yeah, Franco, if you're upset with Battlestar Galactica, do I have a movie for you to try to watch? It's called Beerfest. All right, everyone, let's close this out. Thank you all for talking to me about character death. For the rest of you, as you know, we're in our October special episode month. So this Thursday, we are having another Under the Bed monster review coming out. Take a look at that when it drops. And thank you all for listening. Does anyone have anything to plug?
Beerfest.
Beerfest. Watch it.
Do not. It does not hold up.
It does not hold up.
It's not good.
Literally, that one moment still holds up. Everything else does not. All right, I will see you guys all later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Tabletopped. This podcast is available wherever you find yours. Tabletopped is supported by our amazing sponsors and listeners like you. If you'd like to join them, head to our website at tabletopppod.com for links to our Patreon. We also have free things like our Discord server if you want to connect with the rest of the community. We also have details on upcoming episodes and guests, so definitely check it out. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Tabletopped. And everybody, if you could do me a personal favor, please like, subscribe, and leave a rating/review on this podcast.
All right, everyone, we will see you this Thursday for a bonus episode of Tabletopped.